Is the goal 13 of the SDGs. And SIPA is in collaboration with Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution. So climate change mitigation and adaptation interventions. This is an intervention that the SDGs office, well, we all know that the SDGs consist of 17 goals, a holistic framework for any nation or state that is desirous of development. So we're trying to mainstream the SDGs into all development plans across all 36 states of the Federation, including the FCT. So the goal 13 is most relevant to this program, to this event, and of course goal 15, which is life on land, protecting our forests and biodiversity. Energy efficient cooking. Okay, climate change mitigation and adaptation intervention is one of the programs that we're embarking on, and the second one is smallholder farmers capability strengthening, a program in partnership with NEPAD and African Union Development Agency. It's just unfortunate that we cannot project it here. It would have been more interesting, and I think I would have been flowing a lot better. Okay, so if there's like, maybe we should just do it. Banditry, kidnappings, they're all due to some of these activities, apart from the fact that, okay, we have some issues with governance, and yes, these problems have deteriorated to this point because of governance issues. These are issues that should have been long addressed, or even provision should have been made towards mitigating these challenges. The Chad Basin is drying up, and that's why we have the issue of Boko Haram, and that's an international border issue. The Chad, we have that. Then the insurgency, the way we're looking at it, like the governor of Borno State said, that it's not only a problem of the Northeast because it is coming down. Every day we see news of killings, violence in institutions. In fact, I've seen about 5 institutions in the last 48 hours that men have gone in there, kidnapped, or even shootings. So these are issues that call for serious action. So, and when the people feel that they've been neglected, it will be very easy to convince them to pick up arms, to go into crime. And so that's how most of these people, like the people who depend on Chad Basin for irrigation, for instance, farming is their source of livelihood. And smallholder farmers' capability strengthening. So climate change is an existential threat to all aspects of human lives. Climate change is not only an ecological crisis, it is also a humanitarian disaster, and we must take urgent action to mitigate urgent actions to combat climate change and its impacts for prosperity and posterity of future generations. Actually depends on how safe our ecosystems and environments are today. This affects livelihoods and human security. So this is the illustration that I was so desperate to show you today. This is the forest cover of North Central Nigeria as at 2014. You look at Kwara, and this is the border community. So, and Kwara State shares the largest land border with Benin Republic, even larger than Lagos. But there are more economic activities in Lagos for obvious reasons. There's ports over there and several other, economic activities going on there. But imagine if we're able to solve the socio-economic challenges that are bothering these areas, which is one of it is also now becoming a problem. It has now become a problem, climate change. Every year we record devastating rainstorm disasters. Hundreds of families get displaced. Farmers do not have good yield anymore, etc. So, and these are people already living below the poverty line. So you can imagine, where do they even start from? Basically, how do they, pick up the pieces and move on? So like I said, to be easy for people to cause unrest if they are faced with challenges that border communities are faced with. So border communities are actually like extremely sensitive to national security. Security of border communities must not be neglected. And how do we guarantee security of national border communities? Basic amenities, infrastructure, and to also stimulate economic activities around those areas. So Baruten and Kayama local government are the two border local governments between Benin Republic and Nigeria. So look at this forest cover now. I had to do that introduction because this is Kwara here in 2014, right? These areas are forest areas and these are non-forest areas. So this is the Kwara North, this is the border of Benin and Nigeria. Here is Oyo State and this is Niger. Along here is Niger. So this is Oyo and some part of Ekiti State. So now, forest, non-forest area. You can see how much forest is left here. There's already some level of deforestation that has happened here. So you can see how much green area. You see how quickly it disappeared in 5 years. And the reason why there's no access to this spot green area here is because there's no road access. So that's why loggers have not been able to access this place and do the rest of the damage. But I'm sure by now they might have actually devised a way of going there because they finished chopping off all of these areas. So I'm sure if we do it's another satellite image of this area again, the whole place might just be naked. So there are low social income families. So people love trees because they want to survive. They're selling it to charcoal producers, or they are using it to cook. So during this 74th United Nations General Assembly, the President made a pledge to plant millions of trees across the country. And then the pledge is also in furtherance of demonstrating Nigeria's commitment to emerging global solutions for addressing climate change, including Nigeria's commitment to the Bond Challenge, which is the 4 million hectares that was committed by Nigeria in keeping with our obligations to the Paris Agreement. Then there's also a need for the forest cover. This is a recommendation by the international community that the forest cover should be at least it should be improved rather to 25%, as opposed to the 7% that we now stand at in Nigeria. So we need to move our forest cover from 7% to 25%. And then, this is also, it has also been enshrined into the nationally determined contributions. So the nationally determined contributions now, we're actually way behind. So we need to accelerate action. And that's why we have all stakeholders here who will also help us to, because we're not going on this journey, it's not a one-man's job. Like Dr. said earlier, like Dr. Mohammed said, it's everybody working together. But then it is and also that shows that it's a multi-sectoral collaboration. Everybody must come together to make it happen. So we are domesticating this project, and we are key into the National Afforestation Program in partnership with the Federal Ministry of Environment, the Kwara State Ministry of Environment, that's coordinated by the Kwara State SDGs office. And then we're also partnering with the Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria. We are also collaborating with other development partners who are very optimistic about the program and ready to come in to support the state. So for energy cooking alternatives, basically I'll just run us through it quickly so that I don't take much of our time. So because about 48 million kilograms per day, right? 48 million kilograms per day of of wood basically is used in Africa, in Nigeria. That's according to a study. I thought I actually added it here, but it's not here. But we burn down per day 48 million kilograms of wood. So that's why for us to slow down deforestation rates, we must also provide alternatives for our rural communities, our low-income families, alternative cooking options. So these cooking alternatives now basically is to reduce use of briquettes and energy-efficient stoves to combat global warming and reduce green gas emissions in selected regions. So the specific objectives would be in identifying rural women and youths who are involved in the use of fuel woods and charcoal for cooking in this region. Then to distribute freely the fabricated cooking stoves to rural women for adoption in the first instance. Then train farmers, youths and women in skill acquisition on the production and application of biochar in all senatorial districts of the state. So, and that also includes Kwara NOA, which Baratin local government and Kayama local government are a part of. Then the expected outcomes for tree planting. So we expect that there's some economic benefits because we hope that we'll be able to establish tree plantations, economic tree plantations in these areas that have been affected by this deforestation and the most environments that are experiencing the devastation. So instead of always giving them palliatives and all that, so it's not a sustainable venture. So it's more sustainable to empower them to be able to solve their problems, their own climate issues. So by doing the plantations, economic tree plantation project, we empower them, give them seedlings, empower them to nurture these trees. When the trees grow, the produce from these trees, they can also own it as a community and process it or even sell it, while addressing the problems of deforestation and climate change concurrently. So the social benefits, we already said they have livelihood, a source of income, and then the environmental benefits, of course, improving forest cover, climate change mitigation, adaptation, reduction of greenhouse gas emission, provision of ecosystem services, biodiversity conservation, reclamation of degraded land, desert encroachment control, soil erosion, and surface runoff control. So I think this is this my last slide? Okay, one slide to go. So smallholder farmers project. African Union Development Agency, that's the new partnership for Africa's development, NEPAD. So there's a project to improve to the small farmers capability strengthening project, basically to improve the capabilities and productivity of smallholder farmers amid COVID-19 towards effective land restoration. So the project, Kwara State is taking on the counterpart project, and then it's domiciled in Ilesha Baroba, which is in Bautin local government, and being for economics and for strategic economic and social reasons, because there's the College of Agriculture is domiciled in Ilesha Baroba. The Kwara State University's College of Agriculture is domiciled in Ilesha Baroba, and that's also in Bautin local government is the food basket of Kwara State. So that's like the agricultural hub of Kwara State, or supposed to be the agricultural hub of Kwara State. So we have the project is more or less like an integrated farming project. So we adopt farmers in the farm settlement for sustainable, teach them sustainable practices in agriculture, and then environmental, how to also ensure environmental sustainability while engaging in the agricultural practices. So the outcomes of the project will enable Kwara and Nigeria participate in the African Continental Free Trade Zone Agreement. So it's a win-win for all, both the state, Nigeria, and the West African sub-region, and eventually the African continent. Because we hope that, because also there's a component of a free trade zone as well. There's a federal free trade zone that is owned by NEPSA. is also located in Kosposo in Bauchi local government, which is the headquarters of the local government. So this project is going to also lead to the activation of that free trade zone, and that means stimulation of economic activities, more economic activities in that area, and because there's a lot of illegal movement of products along that zone. So if we're able to properly monitor those activities and, to have more government presence in that area, I guess we'll be able to generate even more revenue for the state, the federal government, eventually, even though as it stands, Bauchi local government is one of the highest revenue generating local governments in the state, if not the top, or maybe the second. So it fluctuates. So, then the last, just expected impacts: to increase food production, improve production and productivity of agricultural practices, creation of jobs, adopt practices that will preserve the environment, and like, for example, planting trees, and then we'll also plant trees across the perimeter of the farm settlements. Then we adopt practices that will preserve land restoration, and all of this will lead to ensuring human security and securing livelihoods as well. So thank you very much for listening.